You're watching CBS 6 News, Battleground, Virginia.
And welcome back. We're continuing our conversation now with Senator Mark Warner. You were saying a moment ago about the importance of bipartisanship. You were a member of the Gang of Six senators, 3 from each side, trying to get a deficit reduction deal going. The super committee failed at that earlier. The Simpson-Bowles plan failed. Now we face sequestration.
Remember, the Simpson-Bowles plan never got a full vote because there were some folks in both parties that didn't want to put that forward.
It needed 14 out of 18 votes. It only had 11, so
right.
It effectively died. If the president should be reelected, will he be able to work with House Republicans, or conversely, will they be forced to come to some kind of agreements with him on this?
Well, I think that, and I hope the president is reelected, that there will be impetus then to get a deal done. I still believe there could be a value of laying out a bipartisan deal first to take the first round of arrows. But those who have said, particularly out of the House, that there's no way you can add revenues into this mix, I think that premise, particularly for those of us who've done very well at the very top, will be proven that we need to contribute a bit more.
Polls seem to support that,
but in a fair and balanced approach. The thing that is remarkable is that facts really do matter. Spending's at an all-time high, revenues at a 70-year low. The only time we've had a budget balance is when we've been in between those two, roughly at between 19.5% and 21% of GDP spending and revenues. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out we got to have that meet in the middle. I do think the president will lay out an approach, and my hope is that particularly in the Senate, we'll be able to get that bipartisan coalition together, whether it starts with the president or whether it starts with another group. End of the day, all that matters, all that Americans should care about, and frankly, all the markets are looking for, is that we're going to have a serious plan to address this issue.
That is a cloud hanging over the markets, and we've heard about that recently. What about the Affordable Care Act? A big win for the president, even if the Medicaid provision states could opt out of that. But you said you're concerned about the cost, that it doesn't do enough to contain costs. Do you think the CBO estimates are faulty, or you're just saying more needs to be done?
The fact is this, Bill, that I voted for the Affordable Care Act. A lot of things in that bill that I didn't like. But I knew one thing, that at the status quo, with health care costs almost twice as high in our country as anywhere else, driving Medicare, driving Medicaid costs, others, that was going to bankrupt us. I'd rather put this disruptive action, and I do think the Affordable Care Act will start bringing in more competition, will allow us to create these health care exchanges, will try to promote prevention, which will, in the end, save us money. Those are all positive steps. And what I hope is after the election, is that there will be able to come back and find those parts that, frankly, need a little more impetus, particularly around cost containment, that we can find ways to fix it. The thing that makes me, again, crazy about Washington on some of these bills, Congress never gets it right on the first time, no matter who's in power. But what happened in the past is people would come back and say, let's do a fix-it bill. Now you've got a crowd, again, particularly in the House, that's either repeal or nothing, whether it's financial reform or healthcare reform, and that's just not the way progress on issues have been made, whether it's under Republicans or Democrats. You always got to come back and fix and improve.
Well, shifting gears a little bit here, you're up for re-election in 2014, 2 years from now, but a recent Washington Post poll shows that if you were to run for governor, you would enjoy more support than Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling, Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, Terry McAuliffe in your own party. Are you considering a run perhaps next year to get back into the old executive mansion?
It's no surprise that I get a little frustrated in the Senate because a lot of stuff we don't get much done, and I loved being governor. But what I'm focused on is, getting the president, getting Tim Kaine elected, dealing with this debt and deficit. I also know that I had a great run as governor, and I will always remember that time with great fondness.
So you won't be back next year?
Listen, I'm going to stay. We got an election in about 5 weeks, and we got a debt and deficit. If we don't get the debt and deficit fixed, quite honestly, whether you're a mayor, a governor, or a senator, we're not going to have the economy, and we're not going to have the growth that the country deserves.
So the fact that you put together perhaps a presidential committee back in 2008, what about in 2016? Any prospects there for a possible presidential run?
We got enough politics to talk about in the next 5 weeks here in Virginia. The future will take care of itself. The biggest thing I can do, biggest value add I can make, I think, to Virginia, and quite honestly to our country, at least in the short run, is making sure we get to that common ground in debt and deficit.
All right, Senator Mark Warner, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And when we come back, analysis with Dr. Bob Holsworth. Stay with us.